20 minutes after they invented film, somebody started photographing naked people.
Hollywood was a kind of Sodom on the Pacific.
Middle America was up in arms.
There were censorship boards.
Moral police.
Thou shalt not do this, you should not have that, no nudity, and nothing licentious or lecherous.
If the code movies teach us anything, it's that there are ways around stuff.
You have people making movies without the seal of approval.
It has sex, it has violence, it has the relationship between sex and violence.
Subversive stuff.
Marilyn Monroe was the first actress to prove that nudity does not destroy a career, it can even help a career.
And then Jane Mansfield was right behind her.
Then Mamie Van Doren.
That's Anne Margaret, and she's naked.
Everybody's naked, and they're touching each other.
They decided to allow nudity in movies.
Midnight Cowboy won an Oscar and was rated X.
About bloody time.
It was liberating for actors and actresses to get nude on screen.
When am I ever going to look this good again?
If I hadn't done the nudity, I might not have a career today.
I wouldn't have gotten the role had I not had breasts.
If I'm naked, people are going to go like this.
In America, they go, oh my God. I wasn't prepared for the entire world picking your body apart.
You want to be attractive enough that people want you to be naked, but you want to work with people that aren't going to abuse it.
I don't want to be known as the actress who just does nudity. I didn't have the choices that women do today.
Now there's more of a system of checks and balances.
A growing Me Too movement. People are very aware of power dynamics.
What price do you put on your body, and what are you willing to get naked for?
People are afraid of sex, and maybe they're a little bit afraid of nudity too.
You were looking awfully close, weren't you?
The human body is something we deal with every day. Everyone has seen a naked body in some form or another. Yet, when it comes to nudity in film, people tend to shy away. Nudity has always been a taboo subject among moviegoers, actors, and filmmakers. 1921 marked the beginning of film history, and nudity was something that was used regularly. At the beginning of the 1930s, the Catholic Legion of Decency stepped in and created the Hays Code, which banned many things that could be considered unholy. Philippa Gates, professor of film studies at Wilfrid Laurier University, explains how the Hays Code affected Hollywood.
So some people regard the introduction of the Hays Code as somehow a group censoring Hollywood, but actually it was Hollywood's own decision to institute a system of self-censorship out of the fear that otherwise the government would step in and censor, and then there would be no control.
After the Legion of Catholic Decency pushed people to boycott Hollywood and the choices they made, the code was strictly enforced.
So really what we see for, sort of 30 years after that is not a lot of sex and infidelity, no homosexuality, not drug use or alcoholism ever presented in a way that, in a relaxed way. And really by 1968, people say this is no longer valid in this world, and we switched to a rating system so that instead of producing all films for general audience, whether children or old people, the idea of the rating system was, okay, you can have sex and nudity and violence, but then we're going to give it a higher rating to restrict the number of people, or the kinds of people who can go watch those films.
Once the rating system came into play, Hollywood became more relaxed with what they would show, but there was still this idea that nudity was something to only be used sparingly. Filmmakers and the creators of the Vaughn Film Festival, Mark Pagliaroli and Antonio Yanko, are unsure why there has been a recent change, but agree that a change has definitely been made.
I wouldn't say there's any difference between now and 5 years ago. I'd say maybe 20 to 30 years ago, because not much has changed in terms of the acceptance of nudity in film recently. It's really, since the new millennium started, I think they've really just gone all out with it.
With the change in Hollywood ideals, how is nudity now perceived in film? Laura Esmerado, a graduate from Humber College's Acting for Film and Television program and actress, explains her view on the acceptance of nudity.
I think they're a little bit more lenient with nudity being accepted into films. I don't think it's quite yet breaking through in the film industry.
Some parent groups and concerned children's advocates say that nudity in film promotes promiscuity and adultery among people. Many filmmakers are breaking barriers and adding male nudity to their own films. The perception of male nudity versus female nudity is something that is still debated on among viewers, actors, and directors.
The reality of the
the situation is it's the human body, and there's nothing wrong with showing it. And I think that people are becoming more comfortable with having that conversation about nudity and about the human body.
And that seems to be a concern that Hollywood upholds as well, this idea that female nudity, no problem, male nudity, potentially problematic.
It seems that as human beings become more comfortable with the human body, the more accepted it becomes in film.
It's a risk, and I think that as an actor, we're always taking risks. So I mean, isn't that kind of the point? Like, wouldn't you want to take a risk? It can either make or break your career.
There, I mean, a director includes it in their blocking for a reason. It's helping to tell the story.
Nudity in Hollywood serves as a tool for realism and authenticity, especially in stories that require raw and unfiltered portrayal of human experiences. It can also be a means of conveying vulnerability, intimacy, or sensuality, deepening the emotional connection between the characters and the audiences.
Happy Friday, and welcome to another edition of Speak Your Mind, the show that allows you, the viewer, to let us know what you are thinking. And today's topic, we are talking about Hollywood's dilemma, their objective, their goal. Do you think what we see in Hollywood nowadays is artistic expression, or do you think it's just something over-exaggerated sexual content? I am not here by myself, but today I am with Mrs. Audrey. Ms. Audrey, how you doing?
Good evening, Pastor. I'm well, thank you, and welcome all to another episode of Speak Your Mind. Like we said at the beginning, it is a show where you can let us know what you have to say on this topic. And on that note, I also like to present our Telegram poll that you can go ahead and scan the QR code and be able to vote on this topic. We have one comment that I'd like to share here for all of you. It was Mark that says like this. As a kid, I remember thinking in the 90s that if movies and music and TV was this good, the next couple of decades are going to be amazing. Boy, was I wrong. I regret taking all of that for granted. There isn't anything decent anymore. Everything has become so sensual that I don't watch any of that anymore. Here we have Mark speaking his mind on this subject, and we want to hear from you. Send us a message to our WhatsApp, 437-233-9815, and we'll be sharing your comment here on our show.
I'm not going to lie to you, Ms. Audrey. You don't sound well at all. Are you a little bit under the weather?
Oh, boy, yes. I'm recovering, but again, I want to be here for the people. I want to hear from you. I miss you all here on our show, Speak Your Mind.
If you're watching us and you want to send a throat lozenge, right? They're going to throw you a little cough drop. You can definitely do so. Mark said that ever since he was a little kid.
Yes.
I don't know about Mark. He must have some super advanced brain, because when I was younger and I was watching a TV show, I never said to myself, I can't wait for the future generation of TV shows, but to each their own. You can give us a call right now if you want, 877-785-8700, or through WhatsApp, 437-233-9815. If you're watching us right now on Facebook, on YouTube, on Tuber, you can definitely do so. If you're getting ready, if you're just getting home right now, prepare yourself, because today's program is going to be really, really good. And as we say in Spanish, hoy es viernes y el cuerpo lo sabe. I want to show you our first video, when sex scenes become problematic. Pay very close attention, and we'll be right back.
Very few actors or actresses seem to enjoy sex scenes.
How much do you talk about it ahead of time? Like,
well, you don't. I mean,
right.
You can't. It's so uncomfortable. I'm not gonna like, so what do you think? Like, you know, are you gonna hump me once? Are you gonna be on top? Like, you don't talk about it at all.
And I had a huge panic attack as we were shooting it, which has actually ended up in the show, because I had never felt so kind of dehumanized in a weird way. And I said to my boss, our showrunner, like, I really hope that scene is good. I really hope it's worth it, because you're putting me through hell. Like, I had a huge panic attack. And he was like, yeah, it's good. Don't worry.
I wasn't signing up to be an exploited porn star. I was signing up to play one.
I had a bottle of whiskey because you forget, like when you're shooting, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get hammered for the sex scene because it's stressful and scary. And then you forget, like, you know, you're at work, and so you're gonna be here for 8 hours.
both male and female alike, it seems like a very uncomfortable experience for all parties involved. But most still do it as it feels like a necessary part of the creative process. There are many films and shows involving sex scenes where said scenes further the story and provide artistic merit. Schindler's List has a powerful and heartbreaking scene in which the female prisoners in a concentration camp are forced to run laps nude around the camp. It's gut-wrenching, and the film would lose a powerful moment without it. Or take, for example, a scene from Braveheart, which takes place on William Wallace's wedding night. It's a beautiful and romantic scene. But while the artistic merit of sex scenes and scenes of nudity can be debated, one thing that, in my opinion, cannot be debated is the mistreatment of actors and actresses while filming said sex scenes. As LA Times critic Mary McNamara puts it, for all their many functions, women's bodies are not props, and prostitution is not something that should be regularly relegated to atmosphere. Many of you might be rolling your eyes, calling me a prude or a killjoy, but am I the only one who finds it disturbing that in order to make it in film and television as a woman, it's basically a requirement to eventually bear all on screen?
We saw your boobs. We saw your boobs. In the movie that we saw your boobs. Meryl Streep, we saw your boobs in Silkwood. Naomi Watts in Mulholland Drive. Angelina Jolie, we saw your boobs in Gia. They made us feel excited and alive.
In a recent speech, actress Madeleine Carroll spoke about how she was unable to find roles due to her being uncomfortable filming sex scenes. Actor Jim Caviezel, a devout Catholic, has also spoken about how he's lost many roles due to his unwillingness to be naked in a scene with a woman who is not his wife due to his moral conscience. And in her expose on Harvey Weinstein, Selma Hayek said that Harvey forced her and the filmmakers on Frida to add an explicit love scene with full frontal nudity so he could, quote-unquote, have his fantasy. While none would ever condone Harvey Weinstein's actions, his sexual harassment and assault of women, nothing is stopping any producer or director from leveraging their power to put an actress in an uncomfortable situation. On the set of Blue is the Warmest Color, a film featuring a 10-minute-long lesbian sex scene, both young actresses expressed extreme discomfort with many of the actions that their director forced them to engage in, with Léa Seydoux saying that she felt like a prostitute. This same director went on to direct a new film, Mektoub, My Love, which features an even longer unsimulated sex scene, which again, the actors involved did not want to do, only complying after being, quote, plied with liquor. But these are not isolated incidents.
The word is that you wanted to leave. Is that true? Were you going to leave the show?
I did want to leave, but I'm not allowed to talk about why.
You're not allowed to talk about why?
No.
Okay.
When you leave,
Well, Ruth, I'm like, well, wait a second, Ruth, because what I heard was it was a disagreement about money, male and female salaries.
I've never complained to Showtime about pay parity.
Okay, all right.
Hollywood's conversation about sexual misconduct has largely been spearheaded by adults, oftentimes years after the initial incidents. But child stars are affected by the issue too, and some celebrities say they should be part of the bigger conversation. For child stars, the issues related to harassment, misconduct, and sexualization can start from small places like an article, a fan letter, or even a passing comment on social media. Leading up to the premiere of Stranger Things 2, W Magazine named young actress Millie Bobby Brown as one of the reasons, quote, TV is sexier than ever. Weeks later, a 27-year-old model posted a photo of Brown's co-star Finn Wolfhard. The caption read, "Call me in 4 years." Wolfhard was 14 at the time. Brown is 13. Despite their ages, they're being sexualized by people much older. The American Psychological Association, which has its own task force on the sexualization of girls, says sexualization occurs when a person is objectified, when their value is attributed to sex appeal, or when sexuality is inappropriately imposed. As a result, sexualization at a young age can warp future perceptions and attitudes about dating, sexual harassment, and sexual violence. Former child actress Mara Wilson is vocal about her experiences and worries about the sexualization of child actors. Responding to a post about Millie Bobby Brown, Wilson tweeted, "The people that were mostly a threat to me as a child were not Hollywood insiders, but grown-up male fans." In a personal essay for Elle, Wilson detailed some of her experiences with problematic fans and talked about how she worried about current child stars like Brown. This sentiment is echoed by musician Sia Furler, who cast 15-year-old dancer and Dance Mom star Maddie Ziegler in many of her music videos and concerts. Ziegler performs in Sia's stead, but critics worry some of the young dancers' performances are too sexualized. Along with the rest of the Dance Mom stars, Ziegler has reportedly been a target of pedophiles and stalkers. On Twitter, Sia said she checks in with Ziegler every week and assures the young dancer she has the agency to stop whenever she wants. Sia said further, "It's a conversation we should all be having, not just myself, but all directors, stage parents, and agents." The APA echoes Sia's sentiment, suggesting that parents, quote, "tune in and talk with their children and make sure they understand how to make safe choices about sexual behaviors and healthy relationships."
To note, there are some award-winning producers, award-winning productions that we see nowadays that, because of certain scenes, their defense is as basically it's art. Their defense is this scene made that movie. Mrs. Audrey, I don't know if you've ever seen, it's a pretty long movie. Have you ever seen Titanic?
Yes.
Did you cry in Titanic? Be honest.
Yes.
I have Miss Audrey and I have our production team, Alfredo. He cried twice in Titanic. But in Titanic, there's a scene of where a young Leonardo DiCaprio, he paints a Kate Winslet at that time, who also was young. And that scene, it shows a little bit of nudity. To James Cameron, who produced that movie, it was in his defense that it was a scene that made most of the movie. But what do you think? Do you think there are some scenes that can be left out? Do you think that there are some scenes that should be included? 877-785-8700 or through WhatsApp, 437-233-9815. Mrs. Audrey, do we have any comments?
We do, and based off of what you just said, Pastor Sandy, that sounds like this. The person viewing it has their opinion. Images are subjective, and polarizing them, the good ones anyway, they are those that view, for instance, the Mona Lisa. Some will say it's beautiful, others say not so much. We are all looking at the same painting, but we form our own opinions based on our taste and experiences. The same has to go for Hollywood. When they promote a certain movie, everybody has a different way of seeing and portraying that movie that is trying to tell through those production team that is trying to show this film. So we also have Sandy that says, we read Sandy, we have AJ that says like this: ancient Romans found the male athletic physique all inspiring and plastering it everywhere. Female nudity in movies is not art, period. It's not interesting, it's lazy, and it is demonizing to women. And I would say it's like putting sugar in a salad to get people to buy it. So there we have it. Few different takes on how people seem to feel about Hollywood and its dilemma and how they, portray mostly women in regards to this aspect, right? Because here we see a lot of movies and shows and so forth that often, have women, female actresses putting on, this sexual content, right? And it could be like, for example, is it the same thing when a male does it? Do people have a different take on it? But again, this is our show. Speak your mind. Let us know what you have to say.
And if you never saw a 16-year-old could be sexualized, so we want to show you how Rory Grace Moritz was. We'll be right back.
Around 15, 16 is when everything changed for me. That's when I started to realize, I'm not just an actor. I'm viewed as an actress. So when I was 16, I was making a movie, and we had already done all the screen tests for the outfits to make sure everything was settled, and they had been sent to the studio, and everyone seemed to be happy with it. There was no issues. And then I show up in my trailer for the first day of set, and I'm getting dressed, and I see my bra there, and I'm like, oh, it's weird. It's a push-up bra. Okay. I'm going to ask the wardrobe girl what this means. And then in front of the push-up bra, I saw 2 chicken cutlets. And I was like, I didn't ask for that. Why is that there? So I walk out into my trailer, and I look at my brother, and I'm like, hey, did anyone mention to you why there's chicken cutlets? I was 16. I had never seen a chicken cutlet. I didn't use them as a kid. And he was like, no, what is in your room? And he was like, you're kidding me. And I was like, maybe it's a joke. Like, maybe this isn't real. And I go out, and I ask the wardrobe girl, and she's like, oh, yeah, I was told to put these in your trailer. I was like, okay, I need a producer. And one of the producers comes in, and my brother is like, what? What is that? Why is that here? And I was like, was this your idea? To the producer. And he or she looked at me and said, this came from higher than me. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, it was a studio note. And I was like, okay, what? Like, you're telling me that a group of people looked at a 16-year-old girl in the screen tests, and they said her breast didn't look big enough. And they ordered wardrobe to bring me 2 chicken cutlets and a push-up bra at 16. And I was like, no. And I immediately was like, if you want them to come into my trailer and tell me to put on that, okay, then I'll walk. But I'm not wearing that. And how dare you? And the note went back, and no one came into my trailer and told me to do that. But I was like, I won't do that. And my brother was disgusted. And I just was really, really insecure about it on that movie. And I felt really creeped out. And I think that was my first realization of, like, it was the first time I really felt insecure, I would say. It was the first time I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, well, is it not right?
It's like body shape.
Yeah. In the opposite way, like, because my boobs weren't big enough, because I was 16 and a child. Like, they would never go up to a guy and give him a sock for his pants. No. They'll give me chicken cutlets to put in my bra. And from then on, every young actress I work with, I'm like, watch yourself and just know that every decision is yours. And if you feel uncomfortable, you walk off set. And that's a fact. As I tell every young girl or any woman in this industry who is maybe newer to it, I'm like, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do anything. You can leave. You can leave. Who cares? But the first time you leave and the first time you make the decision to say no, you realize that you can. And all it takes is that first time.
Hey, can you help me with this zipper? I don't know where my husband is.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Minka Kelly is recalling the moment she called out Euphoria director Sam Levinson for an uncomfortable nude scene. In a new interview with Vanity Fair, Kelly, who made her debut as the rich young mom Samantha on season 2, revealed that her first scene with Maddie Perez, the babysitter of her young son, played by Alexa Demie, was a lot tamer than what was originally scripted. Levinson thought it would be more interesting if my dress fell to the ground. That was my first day as a guest on this new show, and I just didn't feel comfortable standing there naked. Kelly went on to explain that after voicing her concerns to Levinson, he immediately accepted any changes she wanted to make, adding, quote, I said I'd love to do this scene, but I think we can keep my dress on. He was like, okay. He didn't even hesitate, and he shot a beautiful scene and got exactly what he wanted.
I feel like we should get drunk and go for a swim.
Okay.
Now, Kelly's comments come shortly after castmate Sydney Sweeney voiced that her character Cassie was originally slated to have more nude scenes in season 2 until she voiced her concerns to Levinson, telling The Independent, quote, "There are moments where Cassie was supposed to be shirtless, and I would tell Sam I don't really think that's necessary here." He was like, "Okay, we don't need it." Much like Kelly, Sweeney explained that Levinson was always receptive to her comments, adding, "I've never felt like Sam has pushed it on me or was trying to get a nude scene into an HBO show. When I didn't want to do it, he didn't make me." Sweeney's comments sparked unease among fans regarding the amount of nudity used in the show, specifically with its female actors. And not long after Sweeney's comments, Chloe Cherry, who of course plays fan favorite Faye, revealed that Levinson initially wanted her to be completely naked in her first scene with co-star Tyler Chase, telling the Daily Beast, quote, "Sam wanted to do the scene with me completely naked," and Tyler was like, "That's a lot." So they decided not to.
And the question of the night is about Hollywood's dilemma. Do you think that Hollywood is just showing an expression that is art, or do you think it's just too much sexual content? You know, Mrs. Audrey, when we see stories like Harvey Weinstein, you know, we were going to bring it up yesterday because we spoke about cancel culture with Ms. Rachel, but somebody like Bill Cosby, somebody who was in the film industry, something that came out years later that, you know, they opened up Pandora's box and all these accusations, all of these rumors. And, you know, we see all of that and we kind of see something dark behind somebody just wanting to act, somebody just want to make a name for themselves, somebody just wanting to go forward. But it's a bit dangerous when, unfortunately, it takes a turn for the worse. And now, Mrs. Audrey, do we have any more comments regarding our topic?
We have Skip that says like this: Hollywood only promotes what people want to see, and they do this as cheap as possible. One good examples are reality and TV shows. Cheap to make and very profitable. Hollywood pushes the limits because that's what people want to see. The old expression, sex sells, has never gone away. The most popular reality show has to do with sex scenes in some way or another. If morality and Christian values sold more than sex and nudity, that's what you'd see on TV and in movies. What type of TV show and movies you see are produced based on potential profit and nothing more. The content comes second, and if the storyline is a winner based on the focus group and other means, Hollywood uses it. So there we have, I mean, a very, very well said comment from Skip that says, you know, it's what Hollywood has to offer. It's all they see is money, is profit, is gain. You know, at the expense of, like we just saw this segment on the actress Chloe, that herself at 16 years old was asked to be put in an awkward position, you know, for this role, for this scene. And how many others, like you said, how many others had, you know, years later ended up speaking out about it. So it's a lot.
And well, now we want to show everybody what people of Toronto, the streets of Toronto, had to say about our topic. We'll be right back.
Do you think nowadays the Hollywood produces more explicit content than how it was in the days before, and how do you think it affects children when they are watching these content?
So my answer is yes, for sure. It was better before to covering under the censor than right now, because right now they show like they don't show exact thing like that have to get under the censor, but they cover it by some actions, some jokes that actually not by my opinion shouldn't be shows at the movie or any like cartoons.
It depends. Really, for the content made for kids, from what I've seen thus far, I mean, I'm not a kid, so I don't really watch the stuff, but it's not too bad in terms of just straight up explicit content. Maybe like the content matter itself, but that's a different discussion entirely, really. But in terms of it just being explicit, not really. If kids are watching stuff that's too explicit, it's probably just out of their age range. Probably shouldn't just be watching it in general.
I honestly agree. I think content recently has been extensive explicit. I think, of course, it's this whole industry, the main purpose is to sell, to produce, to entertain. But I think lately that concept has gone beyond what respect among what we were just talking about among kids, among population in general. And I personally, I don't consume Hollywood content anymore. Whatever I consume in the past, I rewatch it nowadays, and I have no idea how my parents even allow me to watch it. The explicit content, explicit dialogue, I do not think it's even healthy, not only for kids, but in general for like population in general.
Do you think Hollywood has been now using the excuse of art to go into the subject of pushing matters that are too sexualized, but they consider it art? Do you think that that's putting a matter nowadays on movies?
Also, a different like for content made for kids. Like as far as I've seen, not really. If anything, it's a lot of discussion that should be had with a lot of kids because there are a lot of kids that just don't know about sexuality and things of that nature. That being said, whenever I've seen art as an excuse, it's always for an actual explicit content, stuff not made for children. So is not really that much of an issue, at least I've seen.
No, this is not as this. It's not gonna involve for the whole community, right? It's always. It is the some. There are some people who get under the some. Involved by some industry, right? And I think that's yes, but it's not gonna involve basically for like general community.
How do you think that the actors, who take on this explicit role, how do you think it affects their personal life, their relationships, how their kids might view them later? How do you think it affects them who take up these roles?
Well, based on what I've seen and heard from there, I personally do not know any actor, but I've seen how, based on interviews, how the roles they perform later on end up affecting their personality and even their own behavior somehow. And it's understandable. I mean, it's their role, it's their job, taking the role, leaving the role. But I don't know if maybe their support background isn't strong enough, or the job, the work itself is just too demanding. But I think we've all seen how actors and actresses have been little by little destroyed over time. So I think we all agree on that.
I'm not in the industry, so I don't know how it is now, but at least from what I've seen in the past, it's just kind of always been the case.
All right, Mr. Shields. Isn't this scene supposed to go something like this? I'll make your test for you, and you'll be good to me, and I'll be good to you. Oh.
I think I'm going to like you. That's not important. I think the public will like you. That is important.
Yes. I do want the job, Silver. I can't.
Oh, I see. No, you've got me wrong. This is strictly business.
You know, the nice thing about buying food for a man is that you don't have to laugh at his jokes. Just think, if you were some big shot like a casting director or something, I'd be staring into your bridge work saying, yes, Mr. Smearcase, no, Mr. Smearcase, not really, Mr. Smearcase. Oh, Mr. Smearcase, that's my knee.
Yes, I know the type. The minute he meets a girl, he starts feeling her ribs and talking about screen tests.
This couldn't be a diamond bracelet, could it?
Oh, yes, matter of fact, it's engraved to my dear, sweet Sheila. Something I thought of.
How lovely.
But we do understand each other, then, don't we?
Yes, we do, don't we?
Good.
I mean, I'd like to do something for you if you do something for me.
You're making it awfully easy for me to do everything, except live up to your expectations.
Oh, we won't expect too much at first. You want to be a ballet dancer?
Yes,
You want to be a great ballet dancer?
yes.
Come to my office, 3 o'clock.
You see that man? That's Max Fabian, the producer. Now go and do yourself some good,
Why do they always look like unhappy rabbits?
because that's what they are. Now go and make him happy.
Isn't that more restful?
I thought something blew out.
It does improve the view, doesn't it?
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful now, but think of how much more beautiful it will be when your name is flashing across the horizon. Jean Maitland, in letters that big.
That big.
All right, that big.
Got to be big enough to keep people away.
It'll be big enough. I'll be the sculptor and you'll be the clay.
Miss Plum, close both doors.
My, you talk like a producer. But I can scream so you can hear it through more closed doors than this.
Get out of here.
I just want to talk to you 1 minute, Marge.
Oh, get out of here.
Don't you realize that I can make you the biggest star on Broadway?
You can't keep me here. Oh, no, I'm not. Well, you won't keep me here. You hear me? You won't let me go.
I won't let you go.
I won't stay in this house with you another minute. Let me go.
I told you not to come here. Why did you come?
And we're back with all of you, reminding everybody, Mrs. Audrey, that this person who is interested in joining our poll, they can do that, right?
Of course, they can go ahead and scan the QR code as it appears on your screen, and you can vote on the following. Hollywood's Dilemma, is it art or too much sensual comment? Let us know what you think, and we'll be announcing the results shortly.
And a lot of the films that we see nowadays, they do get nominated for Oscars. A lot of films that we see nowadays are films that can even be from traditional to something high-end, to something updated, to something modern. But majority of the times, they do play a role having included either a sex scene or some form of nudity. Now we ask you the question, is nudity ruining films? I want you to pay attention to our next segment, and we'll be right back.
And you're naked a lot. How does that
Yeah.
feel? Is that something when they write you into the script, do they say, hey, how do you feel about being naked? Or you just all of a sudden are surprised, like, oh, I have to be naked?
You kind of you have no choice.
This is a pretty uncomfortable video to make up to this point. If anyone were to check my browser history, there would be some questionable searches for sure. But you know, this topic has been on my mind for so long now that I just felt it absolutely necessary to put forth and make. It seems that nudity within films is at an all-time high. Granted, I'm only 28, so I wasn't around during the 80s, during those heavily explicit films that were made. I mean, they were literally showing like full frontal nudity, both men and women. Even one of my favorite actors, Mark Wahlberg, has a very famous scene.
So I'm gonna be nice. Oh, I'm a star, I'm a star. I'm a big, bright, shining star.
Now, I say we're at an all-time high, knowing full well that over the course of human history, the moral pendulum has swayed back and forth from overly explicit to overly censored. So forgive me for my lack of first-hand experience. But for my own personal viewing, it's getting harder and harder to find a streaming series or a film that does not contain nudity. Now, I know what you must be thinking, like, hey, who's this prude, right? Like, what's wrong with nudity? And truth be told, there's nothing wrong with nudity. I mean, there's nothing wrong. To me, the issue at hand is not nudity in a vacuum, it's the misuse, unneeded, forcefully interwoven nudity that brings no value of story, emotion, or character development. Now, just to prove my point that I don't think all nudity is bad, let me give you a case study of nudity within cinema that I thought was actually well placed and justified. Season 1, Episode 1 of Ozark. Don't worry, if you haven't seen the show, I won't have any spoilers here. But in Episode 1, we see the protagonist, Marty Byrde, played by Jason Bateman, watching a hidden camera sex tape of his wife, Wendy, played by Laura Linney, having an affair with another man. Now, as far as nudity goes, we don't actually see that much of it, but it is very clear what is happening and what is going on. Now, when I first started watching this show years ago, before really all the hype and the clout surrounding it, I was immediately just thrown off and taken back by this scene. So much so that I actually just stopped watching it altogether. And then after I kept reading about all the reviews and different people saying how beautifully executed this show was, I kind of just said to myself, hey, maybe if I get through that first episode, the nudity will just kind of taper off through the rest of the season and the rest of the show. So I came back, and of course, like any great show, I just binged it all the way through its current season. I was wrong about one thing, however. The nudity did not taper off. But we'll get to that later. After I had spent time and gone through the entire show and I developed context for what takes place in the pilot, I realized how beautifully done the explicit content was. That scene in Marty's office was so unbelievably uncomfortable for me, and that's exactly what the writers, program creators, and directors of the show intended. Now, I don't think they ever intended for me to take a year hiatus of the show, but they wanted to set the stage from the very onset of the relationship and the power dynamic between Marty and his wife, Wendy. Because when you understand their relationship and the complexities of it, everything that happens thereafter, it's not that it is justified, but you can start to make sense of this chaotic world that Ozark takes place in. A theme that plays throughout the entire show. One that was so deeply infused into the veins of the story, beyond the drugs, murders, cartel involvement. This show at its core is about a very complicated family and marital structure.
Marty, what would it look like to achieve your objectives without interfering with Wendy's project?
I think that would look like death.
But what would it really look like?
Really death.
Now, let's get into some examples of nudity within cinema that I do not feel were justified. All right, I told you we'd be back to Ozark. So, much to my demise, in season 1 of Ozark, the nudity did not taper off as I was hoping. We see more examples of Marty when his family moved to the Ozarks, and we see multiple scenes of Marty and other characters in a strip club. What I wish would have happened, much like they did with the Wendy affair, was to show the explicit content without actually showing the explicit content. One of the greatest things that I think you can do as a writer or as a director is let your viewer, let your audience's imagination run wild. Let your viewer figure out what is happening without blatantly telling them what is happening. Now I get it. They're in a strip club, and this club throughout the first 2 seasons plays a role. But it's very easy to identify a strip club without actually needing to see the dancers.
And one of the things that you can definitely learn from what we've been talking about, we're not saying that it's not good if you want to pursue an acting career, but there are definitely dark aspects of what many actors and actresses have to do. And it's like you saw in the beginning, the interview that Ellen DeGeneres had, kind of said that he didn't have any opinion on what he needed to do. And the thing is, why in this industry now it's being more appealing, it's because that's what many people now are attracted to. Don't ever forget, at the end of the day, Hollywood is just another market. And it is a market that needs to sell. And what's on the mind of a lot of people who sometimes are very empty, they're looking to fill that void with a temporary high, with a temporary euphoria, with a temporary pleasure. And a lot of the times, that does have to do with sex. And so what we want to show you is that if inside of you, you have a desire that is not good, what you're going to see around you sooner or later, you will see the same exact thing. It's as if it's going to come out and be put to light. And that's what Jesus shows us, that there is nothing that's hidden that won't come out to light. And maybe you watch us right now when you're somebody who you say, Pastor, I've been noticing that my thoughts, it's as if they become reality. I've been noticing that my worst nightmares have started becoming something real in my life. They started becoming a stigma. They started becoming something that I'm getting used to now. I don't sleep. It's Friday. Instead of me being outside with my family, I'm now home because I'm scared to leave. Maybe you're someone right now who feels at the bottom of the barrel. You're depressed, you're sad, and what we want to tell you is God has the power to give you that strength so that inside of you, you're not empty anymore. So that the things that attract you now, it's not going to be things like sex or nudity. No, you're going to be desiring to have more of what God is capable of giving. And Mrs. Audrey, just so that we can end already, do we have the results of our poll?
Pastor, we have here 87% that vote on the following. It's starting to head that way in that direction, whereas 13% say everyone is free to express themselves through film. There we have it, our final results for our program for tonight.
And again, one of the things that we want to emphasize, it's not the fact that we're against what Hollywood does. I enjoy a lot of movies. If you ask me, some of my favorite producers, you can go from Quentin Tarantino, James Cameron, so many amazing films that have been coming out over the past few years. But again, it goes back to us saying a lot of the times what's inside of us is always going to want to desire, it's going to call our attention on the things around us. And that's why Hollywood is noticing that for a lot of people who are empty right now, what they desire, what they seek is exactly what they're showing now. But you can change that. And what I want to do now on this Friday night, I want to pray for you. Yeah. I want to pray for you who are watching us right now. Pastor, how did we go from Hollywood to prayer? Well, you're not watching this show as a coincidence. It's not luck. It's not casualty. It's not just cause. No. You're watching this program because God is showing you that there is a solution. There is a way for you to be happy. There is a way for you to be filled. There is a way for you to, how can I say, have inside of you truly abounding or being abundant with life. But it depends on you. So I want to do something right now. You where you are, I want you to put one hand over your heart. And then your next hand, whether it's left, right, I don't know, you're going to extend it to the screen. And I'm going to pray for you right now. All right? One hand over your heart and the other one to the screen. Close your eyes. My God, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I determine in the life of this person who's watching us right now, the same exact way, my Lord, Hollywood has seen many people be attracted. And like we had read, that sex sells. Although, my Lord, that can be a reality for many people outside. We don't want that to be a reality for us because at the end, that's a reflection of what we have or what we're missing inside. My God, I determine that this person who now feels empty, this person who now feels shallow, this person who right now, my Lord, has been looking for a way out and hasn't found it. And they tried to find it with drugs. They tried to find it with alcohol. They've tried to find it with going out. And just today, they happen to stay home. They've happened to watch. But my God, in Jesus' name, this person who's watching us in this moment, we determine them free from any dirty thoughts, free from any lewd thoughts. We determine, my God, that inside of them it's replaced. Any thought of nudity, of sex, of anything impure, anything that doesn't help them or benefit them at all is exchanged, my Lord, for something positive, for the restoration of their lives. My Lord, I place their life in your hands. In Jesus' name, and if you believe, say amen. Amen. Jesus right now is working in your life. Do you believe that? Yeah, perfect. So work right now and know that God is completing said work in your life. But it's not something that's automatic. It's something that I need to continue provoking. And you can do that this Sunday in our gathering of faith and miracles. 2420 Dufferin Street. We're right there on the corner of Bowie Avenue, about a block and a half from Eglinton. You can write the address down on the bottom that is on the bottom of your screen. And you have that opportunity to be with us this Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning. You want to be free. You want to stop suffering. We're going to be waiting for you. And just like so many other people, and like Carolina right now that you're going to see her story, they were able to be free. You also are going to be free. I want you to pay attention to this story. God bless all of you. Have a good weekend.
These are results of faith.
My name is Barbara Dew, and I am 82 years old. After my husband passed away, naturally I was grieving and depressed because we had been married for 60 years. And I was missing him terribly because we were very, very close. And I just couldn't, I just couldn't let it go. After the depression, I fell, broke my hip, had 2 hip replacements. One was fractured and the other one was broken. Couldn't move, couldn't turn, like from my waist down was like froze. After the surgery. And I went to therapy. And then, the therapy hurt so bad, they give you intense therapy. And then I come home from rehab and then laying in bed, trying to exercise, trying to get up, trying to move. By that time, after suffering from so much, I started watching the Showdown of Faith. And so they said, if you have problems, call us.
I want you to know that you are not alone. We are here for you.
So I called Bishop. And Bishop, I explained to him what I was going through, what had happened to me. And Bishop told me he was going to send me the blessed water. And he was going to send me some oil. And he did. And he also told me that there was a church on Elm Street that I could go to for healing. And so I said, oh, thank you. So anyway, I stopped talking to the bishop, and I started coming to the church. After I come to the church, I was very, very glad I did. When I come to the church, I was on a walker. Now I am walking. Through the grace of God, through my faith, through my tithing, God has blessed me. And he's continually blessing me with the blessed water. I drink the blessed water. And I read it. I do what the pastor tell me to do. You have to have instructions with it, and you have to have faith. And God has blessed me through my faith, me having faith, through the grace of God, through the pastor, through the blessed water. I wouldn't have made it. I don't have no depression. My home is quiet. I can serenity. I can feel the serenity. It's nice. It's nice. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I don't have to worry about depression because God is my co-pilot. If you're sick and there's no way out, and you think there's no way out in your life, turn to God. Have faith, knowing that he's going to heal you. Just because you have situations and problems, that doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. If you watch the Showdown of Faith and start going to the church nearest you, following the instructions of the pastor, drinking the blessed water, with your faith, you can be healed.
lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from my Lord, who made heaven and earth. He won't let my foot be moved. He who keeps me is the Lord, the one who keeps Israel. Will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is my keeper. He's the shade on my right hand. He keeps my soul. He protects me from all evil. He keeps my going out and my coming in, from now on and forever. The Lord is my keeper. He's the shade on my right hand. He keeps my soul. He protects me from all evil. He keeps my going out and my coming in, from now on and forever. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He won't let my foot be moved. He who keeps me is the Lord, the one who keeps Israel. We neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is my keeper. He's the shade on my right hand. He keeps my soul. He protects me from all evil. He keeps my going out and my coming in, from now on and forever. The Lord is my keeper. He's the shade on my right hand. He keeps my soul. He protects me from all evil. He keeps my going out and my coming in, from now on and forever. From now on and forever.